Jimmy Carter was the 39th President of the United States of America. He was also one of the senior-most political figures in history of the United States to officially declare that he had seen a UFO, that he had filed a UFO report, and that he wanted openness in regards to the discussion about UFOs in North America. He also advocated for scientists and others to have rights and openness towards studying UFOs. My name's Beth with Shed Show Talk, and today we're going to take a look at Jimmy Carter.
Don't make fun of people who say they've seen unidentified objects in the sky. Never have tried to identify what I saw. It was, a light in the western sky that was very unique. I never seen it before. So there were about 20 of us who saw it.
Jimmy Carter was deeply impacted by his UFO sighting. It was part of his political campaign, it was part of his writings, and part of his public discussions. One of the quotes that I really enjoyed reading from 2005 was Jimmy Carter when he announced that what happened was they looked over in the west, there was a bright light in the sky, they all saw it, and then the light got closer and closer to them, then it stopped. He didn't know how far away, but it stopped beyond the pine trees, and all of a sudden it changed color to blue, then it changed to red, then back to white, and they were trying to figure out what in the world it could be, and then it receded in the distance. What's interesting about this recollection is not everybody who was with him at the time has a recollection of what they saw or if they saw anything at all. Fred Hart, who was there at the time, is the only guest who remembered seeing anything at all, and he was quoted as saying, "It seems like there was a little, like a blue light or something or other in the sky that night, like some kind of weather balloon they send out or something. It had been pretty far back in my mind." That was a quote from 1998. Regardless of the fact of people changing their story decades later, Jimmy Carter never lost faith in the fact that he saw a UFO and that he was still seeking answers, despite the fact that he did distance himself from seeking disclosure while in office, citing defense implications. This could be quite understandable, as many presidents have commented the things they wanted to do before they got into office changed once they realized what the office was about. So I don't hold anything against Jimmy Carter for not being able to get further information about UFOs out there. However, I do want to point out that people are very eager for a public figure, particularly the presidential office, to affirm that yes, there are in fact UFOs, that this phenomena has been happening for a very long time, and that it requires active and open scientific investigation. People want to believe. If you take a look at our video, World Leaders Talking About UFOs, you'll see a lot of world leaders calling for information and study into UFOs. During the 2016 presidential election in the United States, at Shed Show Talk we talked about whether or not either of the candidates would go for UFO disclosure. There was a high hope that perhaps one of the candidates would be able to break through and finally reveal the information about UFOs that people have been waiting for decades to find out. However, there's also been hope that WikiLeaks could perhaps shed light on whether or not UFO disclosure is coming in the near future. What I'm hearing is a lot of hope and anticipation from those who have seen or experienced UFOs and who desperately want answers. However, if I look at the history of presidential campaigns, what I see is a lot of hopeful people wanting information about UFOs in Area 51, but also seeing people who are not getting those answers even if they're in the president's office. There's clearly something going on, and it is yet to reach the public. One thing is for certain, there's a lot more talk about UFOs and a lot more discussion at the highest levels, including the presidential levels, than anything I recall ever seeing. So perhaps optimism is in order. The thing about UFOs is they can become identified, or IFOs, and sometimes the mystery or the wonder is lost. But I think when we think of UFOs, it's important to consider that there are so many different types of UFOs. And currently in 2017, there's so many more UFO sightings than there were the year before. And I can't help but wonder how much of that is a result of new military aircraft. And this is one of the questions I want to keep asking in my videos because I want your opinion. Perhaps you're an aviation expert. Perhaps you understand airplanes or what's out there. Let us know. In the meantime, if we look back to what kind of aircraft was around during Jimmy Carter's time, it is way less likely that Jimmy Carter saw an experimental aircraft that was able to change colors, be motionless, and to fill the other descriptor points that Jimmy Carter did have for it. But I can't help but wonder about the Foo Fighters in World War II, and these were unidentified aircraft that pilots talked about doing aerial maneuvers during World War II. And it has me wondering how far back military planes and experimentation went, and if so, who is responsible for them? There's a lot of discussion about different presidents saying that there was an issue of power between them and the military-industrial complex, and sometimes I just wonder how that ties to UFO sightings such as Jimmy Carter's. But let's go back to what he said specifically. And he said all of a sudden they looked up and there was a bright light in the sky. They saw it, the light got closer and closer, it stopped, and of course then he describes the changing of the colors. So in other words, this object was moving towards them, it stopped, and it changed colors. What on earth could that be? Some have speculated that it might have been a high-altitude barium cloud. There was a letter written and sent to the Carter family, and it was written by Carl Justice, and he believed that he had a possible explanation for Carter's UFO sighting, and I'm just going to read you part of his quote here. He said that in the early 60s and early 70s, he worked on an Air Force-sponsored project that studied the upper atmosphere using releases of glowing chemical clouds produced by rockets launched from a station in Florida. Some of these chemical clouds, notably sodium and barium, were visible in the process of resonance scattering of sunlight. And basically, this author, Justice, believed that what Jimmy Carter was describing was essentially a chemical cloud. Now, this ties to the whole discussion about chemtrails, and I'm not going to get into that in this video, but can you imagine if a presidential candidate essentially witnessed a chemical cloud in the upper atmosphere? Just think of all the connotations of that. I've really had fun looking at Jimmy Carter's UFO Bureau report and all of the things about Jimmy Carter. I'm always learning something new. And before I go, I want to show you one more UFO sighting, and this is from Dexter, Michigan. It's an older sighting from 1966, but one of the things I want you to pay attention to is how the UFO sighting occurred, how many people witnessed it, how the police responded, and of course the fact that no one had cameras. So how are they going to tell people about the UFO? Well, they're going to come together and draw a unified photo. Take a listen.
Frank Manor's UFO remained over his swamp more than 4 hours. His children saw it, his in-laws saw it, residents of the area saw it, the police saw it. No one photographed it, but Sergeant Newell Schneider of the Sheriff's Office remembered it well enough to draw it.
No, it moved very rapidly at any speed, or rather any direction it wanted to go. While it could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
I really like UFO sightings from the 1960s. That was spectacular, and I'm so glad the police took it seriously and that the community came together to make that drawing that we can look at today. Because you know what? People are seeing UFOs today that look just like this. And I can't wait to find out more about it. See you next time on Shed Show Talk. I'm Beth, signing off.